Hey everybody, I'm really glad you found Suncrest Messages. I do hope you'll take a minute to subscribe to either our podcast or our YouTube channel. And you can also download the Suncrest app. There's great stuff there that goes far beyond these messages. Either way, I hope that the next 30 minutes helps you integrate faith with your life. Enjoy.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Good. This is a good-looking Thursday crowd. Did you read my email this week? Yeah, well done, well done. I just had a moment of hesitation. You may know this. About an hour ago, our building had no power at all. Like the whole power went out. And I seriously thought we're going to have to cancel the Thursday service on the night I asked everybody to come to the Thursday service. So I'm really glad that didn't work out. But I'm glad that you're here tonight. We're going to start this new 3-week series called Money Talks, and I'll get to the introduction of that in a moment. But first, I have a kind of a question for you, draw something to mind. I'm curious for you to take your mind to the last time you were lost. When's the last time you were lost? Maybe lost out on the road somewhere, or lost in the store somewhere, just lost. All the feelings that go along with being lost. I've been lost a number of times in my life. The story I always come back to about feeling lost is actually 25 years old now. Think about this. I'm a simple guy from a very small farming town. We didn't have stoplights in my hometown, and I went to school to study for ministry, and then I did an internship when I was 20 years old, 19 years old actually, in Morris, Illinois. You know where Morris is, over on the other side of Joliet? So I was getting pretty close to this big city called Chicago. And I was dating Jenny at the time. We had been dating for quite some time, and she decided to come up and visit me one weekend while I was doing my internship in Morris. And I thought, well, she's come up to Morris. Let's go into the city together, right? Now, again, farm boy, small town. Don't know if I knew I hadn't driven in the city before. So we make our way into the city, and we did what tourists do. We went to what was the Sears Tower still at the time and went up there. Side note on this story, my daughter told me I should tell you this on the way here. It was at this stage of our relationship where Jenny was pretty sure we were going to get engaged that summer. And I learned later she thought I was going to ask her to marry her on this trip to Chicago, and I didn't. And I couldn't understand why she was so mad at me, like at the end of the trip. But anyway, we went into Chicago. Now, this is before GPS. This is, of course, before smartphones. We had maps. And if you remember, like folding maps, right? So we went to the Sears Tower, and then we thought after the Sears Tower, we're going to go to the Museum of Science and Industry. And all of you live here, so you know this. You're like, well, the way to go from the Sears Tower to the Museum of Science and Industry is to go down Lakeshore Drive to the south. You all know that. I didn't know that. We had our map. We went down the Dan Ryan. Yeah. And then went across the south side of Chicago to the Museum of Science and Industry with our map. All right, so we're going, and I start to understand, I don't think I'm where I should be. I'm a farm boy from Camp Point, Illinois. And actually, it's kind of not even funny, just scary. We were at a stoplight, and I was looking around, I'm not familiar with this, and literally, there was a car next to us. It was the summer, windows were down, and there was a man and a woman in the car next to us who were yelling at each other. They were arguing. And then I looked over, and I saw him punch her. And it was so unsettling to me, and I thought, we just have to go as soon as we can. So now, this is the idea. I don't know if you've ever been lost like that, but when you're lost, there are certain feelings that go with it. And it's worth thinking even before we think about the feelings that go with it, about how someone actually ends up lost. There's really only 3 ways that you end up lost. You're lost because of directions, bad directions, or no directions. Someone gave you a lack of direction or no direction. You may have actually gotten good directions, but you made bad decisions somewhere along the way. Or it could be that you had the directions and you were making good decisions, but you got distracted and you missed something. That's how people end up lost. And I've noticed a couple things about being lost, is that one of the things is that being lost isn't quite the same as getting lost. Because you're actually lost while you're getting lost, but you don't know that you're lost, right? I mean, this is the whole thing. If you knew you were lost, you would stop the moment you're a little lost and turn around. But you can actually, this is the big deal, you can actually be lost and not know it. You can have great confidence that you're not lost. But you are lost, and you realize it later. That's a big deal about getting lost. Also, when you're lost, all the tension rises, doesn't it? Have you've been lost in a car with someone, And this isn't like, because when you're lost, what's happening is you're probably late for something important. And you're not sure if you're going to get there at all, let alone on time. I've done weddings before where, I'm up front in the wedding and you see the people who are coming in the door like 2 minutes after the ceremony began. No one who ever comes in the door 2 minutes is coming in with a smile on their face. It's usually a couple and they're like this. I'm like, it was clearly the other person's fault in the car for why they were late. But these are all the things that go around being lost. And this applies to all parts of life. This is very important because some of you have experienced this. You've had a time in your life, maybe even right now, where morally you got lost. You just got lost. And maybe it's because you didn't have good directions or any directions at all. Or maybe you had the directions, but you just made different decisions. Or maybe it's because you got distracted. But you know the pain of that. Like, this is not right. This is not who I am. This is not who I was raised to be. It's not just morally that people get lost. Sometimes spiritually, people get lost. They set a course. They had a plan. There was a picture for how life should be. But somehow, and they're not maybe even sure quite when, they got off track and they ended up lost relationally. This happens all the time. Nobody plans to get a divorce. Nobody plans for how their family ended up turning out when it goes bad. And maybe it's because you didn't have a map. Or maybe it's because you got bad directions. Or maybe you did have the map, but you decided you were going to wing it and do it your own way. Or maybe you just got distracted, but you end up lost. And of course, financially, people end up lost all the time. And I always think when it comes to finances, this is the area where nobody should get lost. You all know, hopefully, where your money comes from, and you all know, hopefully, where your money is going. You don't have to be lost financially, but still, many times people end up being lost. And I actually wrote down a number of kind of categories here. Maybe some of these apply to you, where I think we'd all agree, like, yeah, that's lost financially. Let me try some of these. If you spend more than you make in a year, you're lost, right? I mean, that wasn't the plan. Nobody decided, that's what I'm going to do, and now I'm going to go execute that. If you don't know if you spent more than you made last year, you're lost. If you don't care that you spent more than you made last year, you're lost. If you owe more on your car than it's worth, you're lost, right? That definitely was not the plan. There was a direction, there was a map, this was not it. Lost. If you're paying the minimums on your credit cards, you're lost. If you aren't saving any money, you're lost. If you have no method of tracking where your money goes, you're lost. If you have a dream that will take money, but you're not doing anything to put the money toward the dream, I mean, that's a recipe for depression. To have a dream that will take money, but you're lost. If you make more than $70,000 a year and you still feel financial pressure, I'd say you're lost. If you're making financial decisions you hope your spouse never finds out about, you're lost. And if you're making financial decisions you hope the IRS never finds out about, you're lost. You never set the course in that direction. But what's interesting to me is that lots of people, though it's unnecessary, lots of people end up lost financially. And so in some ways over the next 3 weeks, what I want to do is make sure that you have a map and you have some directions and you get a chance to reset some decisions in your life so that if your money were talking to you, it would tell you what to do and you'd be able to follow what it says. So I do have a couple of questions. This is show of hands. I do need your help. How many of you feel like your parents did a great job teaching you about money? Wow. Not very many. So if you just raised your hand, you should, if your parents are living, you should absolutely reach out to them and say thank you for that. Some of you are parents responsible for teaching your kids about money. You should absolutely be doing that. Good parents teach their kids about investing, saving, spending, and debt, and generosity, and help people see that. And there's really kind of two levels to that. One is to help people see it in the big picture, like a map for life financially. And some of it is just about very particular decisions you make so that you can stay on track with the big map. And so over the next 3 weeks here, I'm going to talk about some great wisdom from the scriptures about finances. Now, here's the thing. Public service announcement. If you're allergic to teaching about giving your money to God, week 3 is the one you want to skip. Okay? I'm just trying to help you out a little bit here. You're in the clear for these first 2 weeks, and week 3, that's the week we're going to talk about that. So hopefully that's helpful to some, I guess. And today, I want to talk about the big picture of a map. And over the next 2 weeks, there's some very particular decisions that I think would be insightful that can shape you within that map. And so let's just ask this question. If our money could talk, what would it say? And of course, I'm kind of coming at this from the perspective of your money's telling you the right things. If your money could talk, I think it would say things that are very similar to what Jesus said about your money. I don't know if you know this about Jesus, but he used the subject of money a lot. He taught 35, 38 parables or so. At least 16 of them were on the subject of money. But here's the thing. None of them were on the subject of giving money to him. So it's just the idea that money is important and there's a lot of wisdom around it. And what I've done for this particular message is I've tried to take the wisdom of the whole of the scriptures, and we'll pull from some different places so that you can kind of map out, oh, this is the way to think about money. So the first thing I think money would say, if it could talk, is it would say, I'm temporary. I'm temporary. Now, this is a big deal. Another show of hands, help me out here. How many of you have ever been the executor for an estate? We got a few people who've been the executor. Some of you know you're in line to be the executor of the estate. I think this is one of the really good ways to think about your life and money. When you're the executor of the estate, there's money that wasn't yours that's going to come into your responsibility for a short time. You know the will, you know the wants, the desires of the person whose money it is, and then you have a temporary assignment in order to disperse that, and then after a while, you're not touching that money anymore. And that's a very short window of time as an executor, but in some ways we could look at our lives in exactly the same way. And it's very important that we all see how temporary money is. It would say, first of all, I think I'm temporary. I came from somewhere, right? I came from somewhere. One of the biggest myths that people will start to believe about themselves is that whatever amount of money they have, they were the ones who were responsible for creating it, right? And when you do this, it will lead you to believe that your net worth is equal to your self-worth. One of the things the scriptures would say is, oh, you want to be very careful about that because your money, it actually came from somewhere. And in the biggest picture, you can think about it like this. The scriptures say, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Everything that we have is God's. Everything on planet Earth is God's. It is our responsibility. We learned this in Genesis. It's our responsibility to care for the earth and be caretakers of it. And even when you think, yeah, but I was smart, I earned it, I worked hard, I did all those things, it's good to step back for a second and understand, he says, but remember the Lord your God, for it's him who gives you the ability to produce wealth. And this is very, very important. Your money came from somewhere. It didn't begin with you. You're going to be the executor of it for a long, long, long time, your whole life. God has a will, a direction to say, hey, this is how I want you to handle it while you're here. And then your money would say, and I'm going somewhere. I'm going somewhere. Like, we all know this, right? That when you die, the money stays. So you two aren't connected anymore. You know, I have a pastor friend, he says, I've never seen a hearse pulling a U-Haul. And it's worth thinking about just for a moment. To say, hey, it actually didn't start with me. It's temporary. It came from somewhere. And it's going somewhere. And there's a temporary amount of time that I have with it, and it's important. The temporary nature of money. One of the things the scriptures say about this idea that it's going somewhere is, the scriptures speak to us. It says, command those who are rich in this present world. I don't think any of you will be offended by this. I'm pretty sure that all of us, maybe almost all of us in this room, we're rich. Okay, the definition of rich, I know the easy definition is people who have more than me or someone who has millions or whatever, but the definition of rich is you have more than you need. Just a couple questions, show of hands. You guys are helping me out, I appreciate it. How many of you own or rent a storage container? Come on, be bold, show me your hands. Yeah, people raise their hands like here on the earlier questions. They're like here on this question, okay? Come on, we can all agree on this one. How many of you have a house for your car? You might call it a garage. Right? Now think how crazy this is. We have houses for our cars. Some of you have houses for your cars, and you have cars, but you have so much stuff, you don't actually keep your car in the house for your car. We're rich, okay? Actually, I did a message series once. I just called it How to Be Rich. Because that's what we should figure out. Like, we have more than we need. How to be rich. So command those who are rich in this present world. Because it's temporary, right? Like, there's an eternity. You will exist forever somewhere. That's coming later. And in this present world, it's temporary. And here's the warning. Don't be arrogant or put your hope in wealth. He says, you want a map for messing up your life? Here's the map for messing up your life. Put your hope in your wealth. Make your wealth the goal. Make it the thing that gives you security, so that if you don't have later on, you'll feel scared. He said, this is a horrible map to put your hope in wealth. Money's important, has a great purpose, but the purpose is not to put your hope in it. So, with that idea, temporary, it's coming from somewhere, it's going somewhere. If our money could talk, what would it say? I think it would say, use me. Use me. To think about your money as a tool. To think about it as a means to an end. To remember that money is essentially utilitarian. It is there to be used. If I went to your garage and I found the tools that you use in your backyard, that you use in your garden, and I just looked at the tools, I'd say, well, the tool's fine, but the only value of the tool is the job that it does. The tool is not an end, it is a means to an end. And I don't know if you've ever thought this about your life, but this is so important. This is true whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, although I think it's more true if you're a follower of Jesus. Your whole life and everything that you have, your time, your energy, your money, they're all means to an end. And the way that you have a meaningful life is that you see them that way. And the moment you think, you confuse this and you think, oh, money's the end, it's the goal, and you miss that it's the means, that's when you lose the meaning of your life. Because when you place something in its proper place to be the means, it can accomplish something it could never accomplish as an end. So money would say, I can't be the goal of life. I can't be the goal of life, but I can provide meaning. Now, this is the map. This is for everybody. I hope you think about your money like this, like, the money I have, however much it is, little amounts or large amounts, doesn't matter. The money is a means to an end. It can provide meaning, can't be the goal. The scriptures warn about this, of course, so you've probably heard this verse before. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. When money becomes the end, and you think this is the goal, I want money, that starts all kinds of evil things. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith. Now, what's that mean? Because I've seen this dozens, I don't think I can quite say hundreds, dozens of times. Some people eager for money, some people who made the goal of their life money, wandered from the faith. And it doesn't necessarily mean they wandered away from Christianity, like they said, no, I don't believe in Jesus anymore. That's not what it means. They wandered from trusting God. They wandered from the faith, from a trust in God, and started to put all their trust in themselves and all their trust in their wealth. And maybe, probably not worse, but as bad, pierced themselves with many griefs. Listen, I hope this isn't your story, but I know way too many stories like this. It's of people who live in big houses, and they're all alone. It's people who drive great cars, and they wonder if anybody authentically loves them. And frankly, this used to be a men problem. Men would chase the next thing, chase the bigger paycheck, chase the promotion that comes with the perks, and they would focus their life on that to the great detriment of their family, of their kids, of their wife, of their parents, of all the relationships. And some people, eager for money, have pierced themselves with many griefs. But I see it increasingly among women. And it's just a real warning on the map to say, that's not where you want to end up. But it's where you end up if money is the end, if it's the goal. Last week, Dan was teaching through this really fascinating parable about the shrewdness that Jesus encourages us toward. And I'm just going to come back to two phrases in that very parable for a moment because it was teaching us about how we use things. Jesus says, I tell you, use worldly wealth to do certain things. And do you remember what he told us to do with he said it's a means, it's a tool. Your worldly wealth, it's important. It's not the end, though. You have to use it. And he actually said, use it to gain friends. Now, that might at first seem to you like, that's odd. That seems kind of manipulative because the only thing in your mind is like, what am I going to do? Like, hire a friend? Hey, for $50, would you be my friend tonight? Like, nobody wants to do that. And that's not what he's talking about. But here's what I know. Stingy people end up with almost no friends. And generous people end up with all kinds of friends. And one of the reasons is they use the resources they have to share experiences with people. Sometimes take them to dinner, hang out. Like there's a generosity that you can use money to build your relationships. That would be a very worthwhile use of money. If you can listen to this. If you can turn something that's temporary into something that lasts, like a relationship, that's a good investment. The other thing Jesus says use it to have an eternal impact. He says, you want to use money well. Here's what you should take something that's temporary and use it to help other people have an eternity with God. He isn't saying secure your eternity with your money. You can't do that. He's saying you could actually use this resource that's temporary and parlay it into something amazing. I mean, just think about this. A lot of you are in here, in this very room, last March, when we sponsored as a church 450 kids in the country of Colombia. And when you sponsored your child, and I hope you're writing to them back and forth if you did that, for $38 a month, for the money that you have, you're providing them education, a future. They're lifting them out of poverty. They're going to be part of a church. They're getting spiritual teaching. I mean, this could blow you away to think you could use a little bit of money to actually change the trajectory, maybe even the eternity of somebody's life. Money is just a tool, and you should use it wisely with its maximum impact. And then, interestingly, as this is kind of being described, it says, the Pharisees who loved money, who saw money as the end, the goal, heard all this, and they were sneering at Jesus. And you'll be prone to sneer at Jesus if money is the goal. Because, ultimately, when you think about the end of your life and people walking by your casket, it's almost this singular. What did they use their money on? And it will either be a life well lived or a life poorly lived. It will be a life of great impact and influence and legacy and relationships and enjoyment and impact, or it'll be a self-focused life that someone died with a lot of stuff. It's almost that simple. And so here's my question. This is the question for tonight. Do you want more stuff or do you want more stories? Do you want more stuff or do you want more stories? And stuff means money was the ends. Like that's what I was aiming for, have more stuff. But if you could use your money as a tool in a meaningful way to generate more stories, that could be powerful. Now, the scriptures talk about this, and they say, hey, there's 3 particular ways when you survey all the scriptures about how you would use your money, like to see it as a tool, if you want to have more stories to tell. And I think these will be helpful to you. I don't know if you've thought about these. Here's the important part. It's all 3. It's all 3. You don't get to pick like one of the 3 or 2 of the 3. It's all 3, right? So money would say to you, use me to meet your family's needs. It's one of the reasons God gave you money, is to make sure you provide for your family's needs. The scriptures give a great warning. I won't spend much time on this, but this is what they say. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. If you have a family member and they need a bridge, they need someone to step in, help them provide the basic needs that they have, you should use your money for that. You should make sure your kids have food to eat and a shelter over them. It doesn't have to be fancy. We're at this stage, we are definitely not talking about extravagance or vacations or things like that. We're saying basic needs from God's perspective. He says, this is your map. You got to make sure that you provide. You use it for your family's needs. The way families worked there, we think in terms of the nuclear family, me and my wife, our kids, that's our household. That would have been expanded a little bit. That would have been brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and grandkids. And I understand some of you are sitting there right now, you're thinking, I want to do that, but I got some objections because if I give them money, they waste it. I understand it's complicated. I do. And a lot of times giving them money is not the right move, but to provide basic needs. If you're the executor of God's will, he says, use it for that. Second, he says, use it, money would say, use me for lasting enjoyment. Enjoyment. Now think about this. I don't know if this is probably not what some of you were expecting me to say here, but it's what the scriptures teach. This is very, very important. This is actually stories, not stuff. Some of you should stop and think about how you're using your money, or maybe how you're piling or hoarding away your money, and think, what if I used that to create some experiences that were marked with joy? The kind of experiences where people tell stories later. In the Christmas series, I was talking about, when I was a kid and how I kind of loved that my, parents would give me stuff, right? And one of the things my dad always did a good job for us on was giving us things that would create stories. He really did give my brother and I a go-kart when I was 10 years old and my brother was 12. It was a 2-seater go-kart. Most of the stories I can't tell you about what happened on that go-kart. But here's what I know. We were sitting around Christmas dinner at my mom's house. My dad's passed away. and we were telling stories about the go-kart. I said, you should think about that. It hit me a few years ago. Jenny and I were a couple of years away from our 20th wedding anniversary. And we thought to ourselves, maybe we should take a big trip somewhere for our 20th wedding anniversary. And then we looked over at our kids and we thought, the years are moving fast and we don't have that many years left with them. How about instead of us spending money on a 20th anniversary trip for the two of us, we make sure that every year from here until our kids are out of the house, we take a vacation together. And I'm telling you, I am trying to live this out. That the scriptures would tell you, you should use your money to create stories. Stories that are marked by lasting enjoyment. Stories that will last beyond 24 hours or 48 hours, but are stories that get told over and over again. This is actually how the scriptures say it. Remember where it said, don't put your hope in wealth? This is the rest of that verse. But put your hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. You don't have to be stingy, and you definitely don't have to be a hoarder. You should take the money that's temporary for you and think, how could I use this for stories? The other thing that you use your money for, is according to the scriptures, your money would say, use me to do good that's lasting good. I mean, think about it. If you could take the money that you have, that's just temporary, and you'll be disconnected from it when you die, but you use it in a way that actually makes a difference in someone else's life. It makes their life better. It makes God's kingdom stronger. That is a very powerful use of money. That's how the scriptures teach it. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, to be generous, and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up a treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age. You can't miss this. Your money came from somewhere, it's temporary, and it's going somewhere. Or you might say, you're going somewhere. And when you go somewhere in the coming age, if you've used your money to do good, this is like a double portion. It blesses people who are here and experience from it, and you're laying up for yourselves treasures for the coming age. That would be a very wise use of money. And here's what happens. This is what people tell stories about. I have a really good friend who goes with his wife every year during December, and they go to a toy store. And what they do is they kind of walk around the toy store. This will probably sound creepy at first. They walk around the toy store, and they look for someone who, it seems like they got kids, straggling along, or maybe it looks like a single mom. Like they're trying to read the situation. And then when that person gets ready to check out, they just go and butt in line in front of that person checking out, which seems kind of weird. But then they say to the cashier, hey, whatever they have in their cart, we're paying for it today. And they just pay for it. And they tell me these stories about how people's eyes light up and how tears sometimes start to fall. Like it's so powerful to do good. It actually is part of the mark of enjoyment also, if you want to put it in that category. But my goodness, those are stories that get told. For Jenny and I, when we figure out we have a little bit of extra, that's part of what prompts, I think we could be foster parents. I think we could. I'd like to use my money in that way, to do good deeds, to take something that's temporary and it'll be gone the moment that I die, and use it to make a difference in somebody's life. And so this is your map. This is your map. If your money were talking to you, it would say, I'm temporary, you got to use me. And you have to ask yourself the question, do you want more stuff or do you want more stories? And then take all three of these things. You provide for the basic needs of your family. You provide for enjoyable experiences. And you do good. You make a difference with your money. That's the map. I want to pray for us to do that right now. God, every time we're tempted to put our hope in money or think that it secures our future somehow, or to buy another thing we don't need, or we walk into a place that has all our stuff stacked up that's just extra. God, just remind us of this map. And help us to execute your will in a way that makes for a great life. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, I really hope that was helpful for integrating faith with life. Listen, if you're in Northwest Indiana, I'd love to have you join us in person. Head over to suncrest.org and plan your visit.